Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to You're on Fire, a Pokemon Unite podcast hosted by me, Spragels, aka Jake, your resident content cowboy. Yee to the haw. There's so much to talk about right now. The last time I spoke with you, we were inside of the broken Metagross meta, which actually did not last very long. And now we have had Gyarados hit the game and an insane amount of news drop inside of Pokemon Unite. The Unite Championship Series starts this coming weekend. So I'm recording this on Thursday. I'm going to be streaming qualifiers live on Saturday on my YouTube. I think probably Twitch and TikTok, really everywhere. So we're going to be watching all of those games. There's so much to get into. I'm so happy that you're here with me. If you're here live on stream, hi everybody. You can see your chat right there. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, hello. You can also see this in video form on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, I already said all the things. So yeah, we did the things, right? I said all the words. You get it all. Oh, the podcast, by the way, is sponsored by the one and only Plastic Cup. No, the one and only G Fuel. Shoutouts to G Fuel. Thank you so much. If you want to support what I do, you can use my discount code SPRAGLES or my link in the description to get 20% off your order. Right now, I'm drinking Watermelon Mint. They remastered it and they brought it back. If you want to compete at Pokemon Unite at the highest level and you want to survive solo queue and you want to make sure that your baby that's been keeping you up doesn't drain all of your energy, that last one's specific to me, then drink some G Fuel. Obviously, it's a caffeinated beverage. It's for adults. Get your hands off it, you little kids. Let's start the show. Here we go. Gyarados. Let's talk about Gyarados before we move on to all the new news. So, Gyarados, just like we talked about before, it is another Pokemon in a long line of Pokemon that are all not great upon release. They're not terrible. Probably Metagross was the weakest of them, especially because of how bad Metagross's Unite move was upon release. But Blaziken, Mimikyu, Meowscarada, Gyarados, and Metagross have all been varying levels of not so great upon release. I expect to have a Magikarp buff very, very soon. Gyarados will probably be getting some buffs, I've got to assume, especially for its Aqua Tail build, which is not really performing well inside the game right now. You can do a lot to Gyarados and not make it crazy overpowered. It's actually not the worst Pokemon in the game, and I actually really like the mechanics of it. I'll talk about it real quickly. One thing that I really like about this Pokemon is I think they nailed the feeling of Magikarp and they nailed the feeling of power that you get with Gyarados. I think they did a great job. When you evolve early, I should say, with Gyarados, like when you're hit a level 4 or 5 Evo, you feel like an absolute demon inside of Pokemon Unite. And it's a cool little mini game that they have you play with it as well. So if you're unfamiliar and you haven't played Magikarp yourself, you're essentially useless, but you have a decent burst in your flail, and then you can splash around. And your job is to get your effort gauge as full as possible. You can also evolve at level 7, but that's like if you're just having a horrible match. Most matches, you will get your effort gauge full, and you will evolve before level 7. And there are some times where if you pick up a KO, especially a KO, or an assist on an enemy, you get so much to your effort gauge. The big things that fill your effort gauge are 10 points and over scored in the enemy goal. And it seems like 10 points and over is like the most. So even if you scored 30, it doesn't make a difference. Like 10 and over is one big set amount. An assist on an enemy KO, huge, which is why you want to gank the Magikarp lane. I'll talk about that in a second. And a KO on an enemy. I have ejected, splashed, flailed for a KO, because if you get it, you basically evolve right away. And it's really, really impressive. The reason I say to gank the Magikarp lane, if you as a jungler head to the lane with your ally Magikarp, and that ally is near the fight at all and is able to get a hit in, and they get the assist, you just evolved them super early. So it gives them a massive power spike. I would highly recommend ganking the Magikarp lane, as long as it looks like you'll be able to do something in that lane. There are times where the lane's just getting crushed and you might not be able to help at all. But in general, I would gank the Magikarp lane. That means head on over there, do your damage. You're, an extra player inside that lane at a high level. Try to pick up a KO if you can. Maybe even let Magikarp have it, but that's a little tough to do. But if you can, you will give your team a huge advantage early. I think the only thing I think they really missed with Magikarp is, first off, for a water type, it's not very fluid. It feels relatively clunky, and I think that's a bit of a mistake. I hope they fix like just some of the slow movements. It's a slow kit, and it feels like you could have a slow kit and it still doesn't need to be that stop and go, which I feel like you have with Gyarados a lot. And then I don't know if it's the most exciting design-wise when you get to Gyarados. So you've got Dragon Breath, which is pretty strong, but it's just kind of it's a damage, move in a line, and it's an attack speed steroid, so you attack super fast. I don't think that's that exciting. I would like Aqua Tail to probably be a little bit better, so that was maybe the call for Gyarados, because I think Dragon Breath, it's just kind of like Metal Claw. It's like a better Metal Claw Zacian, maybe slightly worse. I don't know. Zacian got nerfed. We don't even see it anymore, which can kind of bring us to our next topic that I have on my list. This season of Ranked has no Mewtwo Y, no Mewtwo X, and no Zacian Y inside of the Ranked mode once you hit Master Rank. If anyone in your game is in Master Rank, so if you're an Ultra and you pair into a Master Rank player, no one can pick any of the EX Pokemon. We have another EX Pokemon on the horizon. I think that'll change pretty soon. But this season has no Mewtwo, and no Zacian. And I have to say, I don't miss them. I really don't. I was thinking about this the other day. I would like Mewtwo Y, and Zacian to be available inside the game. I think every Pokemon that's in the game should be in the ranked mode. But honestly, I don't miss seeing them at all. I don't even think about it. It's like, it really doesn't hurt my feelings at all that they're gone. I know that for some people it's probably a bummer, but I don't miss it, and the meta is pretty good. So, I don't know. I don't really miss them. Now, the interesting thing that's happening with the Pokemon, Zacian just got nerfed, and on the public test server, Mewtwo recently got a nerf. So, these Pokemon are EX, which in theory, I guess, means they're better than the rest of the roster. There's got to be something that designation means, right? So in theory, they're better than the rest of the roster. However, now we're nerfing them. And I don't really know what the thought process here is. Are they better, or are they supposed to be balanced with the rest of the game? Because, like, in the chat right now, Clefable right now could be an EX Pokemon. It's as good, like, it's as useful as some of the other Pokemon that are EX for sure. I think one thing that's interesting, though, is what's possibly the big thing that qualifies them to be EX is not only their power level, but also how they interact with Eos Energy. So just a couple days ago, we had a massive amount of leaks hit Pokemon Unite, and I will be talking about spoilers in this video. So if you'd like to not hear any spoilers, I don't know. You're listening to a Pokemon Unite podcast. I have to assume you're okay with hearing anything Pokemon Unite based. So I think we'll start with Miraidon. We'll start with Miraidon, the Pokemon Day Pokemon that we knew was coming to the game because we kind of already had that leak inside the game. But Miraidon and Falinks are coming to the game. Miraidon is an EX Pokemon. It is an attacker. It has two different play styles, maybe more once we kind of get it into a game and really get to play around with it. You sort of have the long-range Mage style with the Charge Beam and Thunder, and then you have the sort of close-up Skirmisher, almost Speedster style of Parabolic Charge, and I'm blanking on it. It's Electro something. Someone in the chat will get me. It's Electro something. So I think the design of this Pokemon, like all of the EX Pokemon, is a little... Okay, Electro Drift. Thank you, everybody. I think the design of this Pokemon is pretty good. It feels way better than the Mewtwo's, which is not a high bar to leap over, right? It feels way better than the Mewtwo's, and I like that there are multiple play styles. I also like that playing it in the public test server, it does feel like it needs some nerfs, but it doesn't feel like release Mewtwo, release Zacian power levels. And if they bring it to the game, and they even nerf it a little bit. I think it'll still be crazy strong, but maybe actually somewhat reasonable. I'm hoping, at least. I do think Electro Drift is probably too powerful. And again, the PTS is a really hard place to test something. It's a public place for testing that is a horrible place to test things publicly. So I think you could probably nerf a few things on it and bring it to the game, and it would be fine. Its Unite move is really cool. It's fun. It doesn't even feel that overpowered. And I guess it's weird. The legendaries, like a lot of their basics attacks, they feel kind of basic, which I think is kind of weird, doesn't it? Like Mewtwo, Zacian, and Miraidon, they all feel not that complex, which is kind of weird. I feel like when I think of what the legendaries would be inside of Pokemon Unite, I think of Pokemon a lot more like Mew than Pokemon like Mewtwo. Mewtwo feels so basic. It feels like you could have, I don't know, you could have made that Hitmonchan in sort of a different way, right? It's just kind of punching. It's like, and then after a while, it's like bigger punching. It feels pretty basic for a Mewtwo. And Zacian, I don't know, it's a dog with a sword in its mouth. So maybe they're really doing all that they can with a dog with a sword in its mouth. But Mew feels like, oh man, there's so much going on here. And then Hoopa, same thing. Oh man, there's so much going on here. And I think Miraidon definitely is a step above Mewtwo, which is cool. But it also feels like, okay, it's pretty... It feels kind of basic, even though it's got some cool stuff. Electro Drift maybe is a little more complex, right? But it feels kind of basic. That being said, it's another EX Pokemon, and this leads me to my thought around EX Pokemon. Miraidon and now Mewtwo all have a part of their kit that is based around consuming Eos energy. So consuming Eos energy is something only EX Pokemon do in the game, unless I'm completely forgetting something. Zacian consumes Eos energy to charge its Intrepid Sword. Now, Mewtwo uses Eos energy when it megas, so you have a longer mega gauge, or I guess a similar mega gauge to what was in the game currently, when you have like 30 Eos energy. And if you have less, you have a shorter mega gauge. So Mewtwo's getting a nerf on the PTS. Weird again because it's EX. And then Miraidon uses Eos energy to create this electromagnetic field around it when it hits an enemy with a move. It can disable enemy goal zones, so it lowers the amount of healing that enemies receive on there. And it can buff your goal zones if you're near it, healing your allies even more. It also creates a field where you can't be put to sleep. Very few moves put people to sleep, but I guess sorry, Yawn, Snorlax, and Wigglytuff Sing. And inside there, Miraidon's going to do 30% more damage in that electro field, and your allies are going to do 10% more damage. So to me, it feels like we actually are finally getting something that is the EX class. Like we're getting the description of what it means to be an EX Pokemon. It's starting to make sense. And what EX Pokemon are Pokemon that are slightly, or at times way too strong, or slightly stronger than the rest of the roster. However, every single one of them is a liability when it comes to scoring, and it's a liability after it gets KO'd because it won't have Eos energy to use its moves fully effectively. So I think that's kind of where they're moving towards in the game. I'm guessing every EX Pokemon that comes to Pokemon Unite from now until Pokemon Unite is old and gray is going to have something to do with consuming EX energy. Coming from the chat, EX Pokemon comes from TCG. Yeah, there are other games that have EX. Just the way they classify them in Unite, it looks like in Unite, especially now after what they've done to Mewtwo, having its Mega consume Eos energy, I think all EX Pokemon will focus around being really, really strong, but also not being able to really fight as well without a lot of resources, without a lot of Eos energy. And Miraidon is just like that. In general, I'm pretty hyped for Miraidon. As long as it's not broken, if they can nerf it a little bit and bring it to the game, I would be so stoked because the game balance is pretty good right now. And that would move us into draft next season. Miraidon is going to drop on Pokemon Day, February 27th. And at the same time, draft will come to Master Rank of Pokemon Unite. We're not ready for draft is a catchphrase that I think a lot of us have. I'm not sure who originated it. I think it was like Matthew McConaughey. He's kind of got the all right, all right, all right. We're not ready for draft. But I've also been saying we're not ready for draft a lot lately. And I stick to it. We're not ready for draft. Thank you, Shrugs, in the chat. We're not ready for draft. But draft is coming to Unite. And in general, I'm very excited for draft because draft is going to be an important addition to Pokemon Unite, and it's going to make the game competitive, more competitive. And I hope alongside draft we can get some slight tweaks to matchmaking, and we can also encourage players that really aren't participating in the ranked mode of the game to participate in the standard mode of the game. Hey, you want to play Goal Getter Zeraora? There's a place for you. It's called it's called standard mode, and you can head on over there and play that while the rest of us are trying to draft a somewhat competitive team. Given that draft is coming and an EX Pokemon is coming, I think it's extremely likely that the EX licenses next season will not be banned. What you might see, this season you see like EX licenses allowed 0 of 0. You might see 0 of 1. So each team gets 1 EX Pokemon, which I'm actually not even... I wouldn't be that upset about as long as Miraidon isn't completely busted. The only thing that would be unfortunate is if Miraidon is completely busted, all of a sudden you have an insta-ban every single game, and it's the newest Pokemon that I think a lot of people want to play. I would rather have a meta where you might pick around that, and maybe you see the enemy team gets Miraidon, and you're like, nah, don't worry about it. I'm taking Meowscarada. It counters Miraidon super hard, or something like that. So I would rather see that. However, given their track record with legendaries, I don't know if that's what's going to happen. Let's move on to our next Pokemon that is coming to Pokemon Unite, and that is Falinks. Falinks is the greatest thing they've ever designed, besides Dodrio. Falinks is everything I want inside of a Pokemon Unite design. Falinks is just, it's so cool. I mean, Pokemon has such a massive catalog of amazing, like, different varieties of characters that you could bring to a MOBA. And I love so much that they're bringing something to the game that feels so true to its design, so unique, and so... I don't know, just so Pokemon Unite. This is a Pokemon that I do not care about at all. I have to be honest. I have no love for Falinks. I never thought it was very cool. If you like it, I'm not trying to, say anything negative about it. I'm just saying I don't care about Falinks. But Falinks inside Pokemon Unite is going to make me a Falinks believer. Just like Dodrio. All of these Pokemon that come into the game, that are these weird oddballs that they kind of bring in and you go, oh, they really thought about this Pokemon and how this Pokemon would interact in this world. I love it. I just love it so much. Now, Falinks on the public test server, on the other hand, is probably the most broken Pokemon I've ever seen inside of Pokemon Unite. I'm not exaggerating. There's something bugged with it, I think. So there's a moveset in the public test server for Falinks. It is No Retreat, Mega Horn. And No Retreat Mega Horn can literally do 8,000 damage plus in a single hit. And I know what you're thinking. Hold on, Jake. Is that its Unite move? No. Those are just 2 moves put together. And it's absurd. It's clearly bugged or just way overtuned. It will not arrive to the game in that fashion. So I don't think you have to worry about it too much. But still, it is unbelievably powerful. Yeah, it has 550% attack scaling, I guess. And that's, I don't know if you know numbers, but that's the highest in the game. And that's quite a lot. And you're literally one-shotting people with a single move. ANXB says 8,000 damage. That's how much damage I do the entire game. Yes, you are trolling. But Falinks in general, such a cool design. Beat up the ability to kind of leave some of your little troopers with the enemy so that they're fighting. Iron Head's a pretty cool move. Mega Horn, I feel like, for me, I like the playstyle most. I think of Mega Horn, No Retreat, and that's just so incredibly fun. Its Unite move also is pretty cool. It your troopers start to spin around the brass, as they call it, and you're kind of like hitting them with a powered up whirlpool. You're basically using Azumarill's whirlpool, but it's a lot better, and you're just kind of doing crazy damage with it. I love the design. The balance is absurdly bad, but whatever. I absolutely love the design, and I cannot wait to see this Pokemon inside of Pokemon Unite. We don't have an exact release date for Falinks, but word on the street is sometime in April. So you've got the 27th of February, Miraidon. Then Miraidon's kind of coming out in March, essentially. It's the Pokemon for March. And then in April, we have Falinks. And then after that, we have one more Pokemon that we know of so far for the year, and that's Ceruledge. We don't know much about this. We don't have any footage of this Pokemon. We kind of got some move names, but they were all placeholder moves, it looked like. So there really wasn't any information except it's Ceruledge. And we have been told by leaker El Chico Eevee that it is not Armorogue Ceruledge. So it's not a split Evo. It is Ceruledge the whole way through, which I think some people will probably be a little disappointed by, but I think it's a really popular Pokemon, so I am not surprised to see it in the game. I would love to see it as a split Evo, though. I really would, but we're not getting that, so sorry, everybody, but that's not what's happening with Ceruledge. Let's talk about the next Battle Pass for Unite. We actually didn't know who it was until just a little bit before the stream. This is a Pokemon that I've actually thought should be the Battle Pass for a little while, especially because they gave this Pokemon for free. There was talk as to whether it was Scizor, which, it's already had one, and Leafeon, which is crazy powerful right now, so I kind of understand it, or if it was going to be Meowscarada. And when I heard Meowscarada was a possibility, I thought that would be the best battle pass possible for Pokemon Unite right now. I think that would be really, really good. They gave the Pokemon for free. It was a huge event. I think a lot of people had it, or a lot of people earned it in that event. So you're going to get a really cool piece of Hollowware for Meowscarada, and you're not doubling up on, another Pokemon like Scizor or something like that. Leafeon would be a pretty cool call. I have to agree. They love the Eevees inside this game. But it looks like it's going to be, it is going to be Meowscarada, and I think that's a really good call. I think that's going to be a really good battle pass, and I think a lot of people are going to be excited about it. Meowscarada is very cool, and the Pokemon's already doing well. I don't know if it's going to get any battle pass buffs. You could tune it up slightly, but Meow's already doing super, super well inside the game. Another leak that happened, which actually caused, I guess, a little bit of controversy inside the community. Meowscarada, the chat is asking, what is the style? I think it was it Dancer? I had it pulled up a second ago. Let me see if I can find it here before I move on. The style for Meowscarada it wasn't Sacred, was it? It's pretty. It's got a pretty dress. It actually looks really nice. It is Dancer style Meowscarada. Yeah, Dancer style. And you can see it on El Chico Eevee's Twitter. It's pretty. It's going to be very cool. So, it's like, look, man, it's pretty. All right? I'm telling you, this thing's pretty. I think it's a really good call. There also was a leak that caused a little bit of controversy in the community, and somehow at the end of it, I got brought into this leak as well. So the other day, I'll even pull it up because it's just interesting reading it and kind of seeing how it all played out. There was a leak for an item coming to Pokemon Unite, and I want to get the name of the item right, or the name of the leak correct, I guess, so I can talk about it here. Where is your boy tonight? I hope he is a gentleman, and maybe he won't find out what I know. Where is the original talking about this leak? Here we go. This was from El Chico Eevee. Hollowware effect sprays can add an effect to Hollowware for X days. Sounds like a little bit of a rhyme. Very Dr. Seuss there. You can add an effect to only one Hollowware per Holloware effect spray. So this is going to be something that you put on the Holloware of a Pokemon. When participating in battles with Holloware, that Holloware effect spray added, the Pokemon's stats will increase. The stats or increase will depend on the Pokemon's battle style. However, this increase will be nullified in tournaments. So originally, I think he had 50 HP. This says PS. He had 50 HP, 5 attack, or 8 special attack. So obviously, this caused quite a stir inside the community because we were staring down the barrel of our first like possible pay to win situation inside of Pokemon Unite. Obviously, there are things you grind for inside the game. You can get, your held items a little stronger. You can get better emblems. But this would be the first time that only through paying you could give yourself a temporary stat bonus, which would be very, very bad. Oh, PS is HP in Spanish. Thank you so much, Lake Limbo. So this would be bad. Obviously, nobody likes this idea, and the community was 100% against it, as they should be. The idea of just giving the stats to Pokemon just because somebody paid some money for a sparkly thing is really, really stupid. I've got a few thoughts on it. I hope they don't bring any pay-to-win things like this to Pokemon Unite. There is a happy ending to the story. The stats are essentially irrelevant, I have to say. It's the difference of switching, an emblem inside of your emblem loadout. That being said, it's still something that you can pay for and get a bonus that you wouldn't otherwise. So it's very dumb. And I cautioned everybody right when it came out to not freak right away. And I think the reason is because a lot of people inside the Pokemon Unite community are, what's the right word for it? Losers. No, a lot of people in the Pokemon Unite community are quick to hate anything that Timmy is doing, right? And I understand some people don't like decisions that Pokemon Unite has made. Fair, you're allowed to think whatever you want. But I think a lot of people are ready to pull the pitchforks out the second they see something, even something inside of a leak, which we don't have a lot of information for. All this situation, kind of people getting upset about it, reminded me of the feeling around rank protection cards, which I said at the time, and I still say, are absolutely irrelevant. They don't do anything to the game. It doesn't change anything to have a rank protection card inside the game. Matchmaking is the same regardless of what these rank protection cards are doing. And another thing about them is, if they're boosting a player up to master rank faster than they would, and then once they hit master rank, they're kind of done for the season, they're actually kind of a benefit to the community if that player isn't particularly great. So, if they're just the kind of player who just spams one Pokemon, doesn't go with the team at all, doesn't care, they have a 41% win rate, and they just keep on keeping on, a rank protection card might actually make that situation a little bit better, because regardless, with the way the matchmaking is inside of Pokemon Unite, they're going to get into games. So, yeah. Fixing matchmaking is a much better conversation than whatever's going on with rank protection cards, because rank protection cards don't change anything at all. And I thought we might be running into a similar situation with whatever this shiny sparkle spray was that is giving you stats. It might be nothing at all. It might be something that gives you stats in quick play, or it gives you stats in standard or something like that. Or it might be something that gives you really nothing. And that is what ended up happening. So Pokemon Unite, I was talking to Pokemon Unite. You can maybe guess about what I was discussing with them. And the topic of all the leaks was coming up because it was happening right then. I was talking to Pokemon Unite, and all the leaks were hitting, and it was like, whoa, here we go. There's so much going on. And there was just kind of a little conversation of, hey, it's such a bummer that leaks are coming out like this because that item doesn't work that way. And I thought, that's kind of weird. I was like, are you sure it doesn't work that way? And they're like, I'm pretty sure. Nobody said it works that way. But they didn't know, right? And I thought that's weird, but I don't have any information. And obviously I can't say, hey, I was talking to someone over at Unite and they think maybe not, right? I'm just playing the game the other day, and one of the community managers for Pokemon Unite reaches out to me and says, hey, I know that you've been talking. I can even tell you exactly what was said. I'm not going to say the little in-betweens here, but I thought it was, I was shocked. Pokemon Unite never talks to me. And then this happened. In case you were curious, we have confirmed that the glitter spray apparently, is not intended to have any stats attached to it, and the text string is incorrect. The effect is cosmetic only. And I was like, whoa. The first thing I wrote was, can I say this? I'd really like to say this. And they said, yeah, you could talk about it. TPCI said people can talk about it. And I'm like, hey, all right, I'm happy to do that. So as soon as they gave me the go ahead, I wanted to let everyone know. I thought it was important to share that with people. I know some people thought it was odd that I was the one who said it. But to be fair, I was the one who was like, I want to say this right away, because I knew people were pretty upset about this. And if this is true, I wanted to get that information out immediately. And they said I could, which I thought was very cool of them. This is the first time I've ever received any bit of, there are leaks and things like that around Pokemon Unite, and everyone knows about it, Pokemon, I don't think, really ever addresses leaks openly or anything like that. But everyone knows that there's information out there. You kind of know the next few Pokemon that are coming because of data mines and things like that. It's not ever something that's like talked about, hey, just so you know, don't talk about Ceruledge if you're casting Pokemon or something like that. It's just kind of known, like, you don't talk about leaks or anything like that in any official capacity with Pokemon. So this was the first time that anything had ever happened where they were like, we kind of maybe should say something about this, which I thought was odd. And then I let the community know. I put out a little video about it. And I tweeted about it, and some people were very mad. People were very mad at me. I don't know why. But some people were very mad at me, and they said some very negative things, which I thought was odd. But in general, I think people were happy about it, which we should be. There's, of course, a question as to whether or not this shiny spray was going to give stats, and then the overwhelming negative response from the community changed their mind. We won't know. I've got to tell you, from the seat I'm sitting in right now, the way it kind of went down, I don't feel like that is what happened at all. I actually think they never thought this item had anything to do with stats. That was the vibe I got. But then again, I don't know. I will say this. Whether the item never gave stats, that's probably the best case scenario. Or at one point the item gave stats and they saw that everybody hated it and they changed their mind. Either way, I'm very happy with the outcome of this situation. Obviously, when there are leaks, we don't know everything. Like we thought Tropius was coming to the game. There were early leaks for Marshadow, and Thievul was supposed to be a wild Pokemon and all this stuff. Like, we see things inside the data mine that doesn't always come to the game or doesn't always end up being part of Pokemon Unite, right? So sometimes the leaks aren't dead on. However, a lot of the leaks are so dead on that I understand people reacting so negatively to the idea of something being somewhat, not even somewhat, something being pay to win. You are literally paying for an advantage inside the game. So I'm very happy that everything turned out the way it did. I'm also shocked that someone reached out to actually let me know, hey, just so you know, it doesn't work like this. I hope they are more forthcoming with information, knowing that as soon as they could come out and say, hey, this doesn't work like that, kind of the better, I think that would be, great. But the way this all played out, I'm just happy that we don't have pay to win coming to Pokemon Unite. And I'm happy that it's something that the community got to hear about quickly, because it's one of those things that can fester. And people can get upset and they could say, this is called Pokemon Unite doing the, here we go, this is coming. And I'm just happy that that's not happening in the game, however it ended up, happening, whether it was the community got upset or it was just never the case in the first place. I'm just very happy to see that that's not coming to the game. So that's the whole shiny spray story, really, in a nutshell. I wish it was a little more exciting and I had in-depth talks with people at Pokemon, but it was very much a Discord message like, hey, just so you know, shiny spray works like this, or glitter spray, as they called it. But there you go. That's what's going on with the non-pay-to-win item glitter spray inside of Pokemon Unite and my little role inside of it, which was very interesting. Let's talk about, we have a few other leaks that I should talk about real quick. We have a new game mode coming to Pokemon Unite that's going to be an all dragon battle. So you're going to have, Duraludon and Miraidon and Dragonite. You're going to have all dragon Pokemon, and it's going to be sort of like full fury with dragon Pokemon inside. So that'll be cool. Oh, we have a question from the chat. Eevee posted a screenshot with Zoroark scoring while on stealth. We don't know anything about that, but no, that doesn't seem to be related. The last thing they said about the shiny spray, because I was like asking, do we know what it does? Like, what does it do? And they say it's an effect. It makes your Pokemon glitter on top of any changes with Hollowware. It's purely cosmetic to flex on top of a flex. That was the official word from Pokemon. It's to flex on top of a flex. So that's what it does. I don't think it has anything to do with any game mechanics whatsoever. It's just going to make you sparkle or something like that. So there you go. The dragon mode, it's just going to be like full fury with dragons. That could be very, very fun. So that is going to be cool. I like full fury mode inside the game. And now I wanted to take a minute here to talk to you about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We don't know where we're going when we die. No, I want to talk to you about the UCS, the Pokemon Unite Championship Series, which is starting up very, very soon. I'm so unbelievably excited to see what this season looks like, especially given that we have more Pokemon coming to the game. We have EX Pokemon coming to the game. They're going to need to be handled in some way. And it looks like they're setting them up to be competitive and not too overpowered to the point where they can bring them into the draft of the game. We're also, possibly looking at draft changes. So in the producer letter, when they talked about draft coming to the ranked mode of the game, they talked about changes to that draft mode. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like coming into Pokemon Unite, right? Because the draft mode inside the game, it's okay for tournaments, but it's kind of a little bit of a mess. So they need to change it a bit for ranked. But at the same time, it would be reasonable to see more changes to draft. It would be reasonable to see more bans. It would be reasonable to see no longer blind bans. So right now, the draft mode inside Unite, both teams just ban, and they're kind of guessing. Like, a team with second pick is going, all right, we're banning whatever anyone would pick first pick, and a team with first pick is going, okay, we're not going to get Buzzwole or something like that. We know they're going to ban it away from us, so we're going to ban the next thing that we don't want to deal with on the other side. We're going to ban Clefable or Umbreon or whatever. We have blind ban right now, which is very odd. I would love to see alternating non-blind bans. So it's one ban. You can even do one ban, two bans, one ban. And you go in that order. So you're no longer guessing what the opponent's going to do. I would guess in the ranked mode of this game, there's no time for that with Pokemon Unite. They want you to boom, 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 get inside that match, play their Miraidon, put a little hat on your cat, and have some fun. So I think you're probably still going to see blind bans inside of the ranked mode. But inside the Championship Series, we could see an update with what's going on right there. One thing is for sure, we're going to have a really exciting tournament season because we have a few events that are super different this season. I don't have them pulled up in front of me, so I'm going to get some of the information slightly wrong. But what we have is the Eos Cup, which we had last year and the year before, but this is way different and so much cooler. And we have the final stretch at NAIC. So at EUIC, we're going to have the Eos Cup. And right here in February, what we're competing for right now, the teams that win this month are going to secure a spot to EUIC to compete in the Eos Cup. And the winner of the Eos Cup punches their ticket to Worlds right away, which is crazy. So you're having a turn, like the start of the season right now is qualifying you for one of the biggest opportunities to make it to Worlds right away. Punch, punch, punch. It's so exciting. It's so awesome. There's so much more on the line when something like that happens. And it's 6 regions, I think. And I'm going to get some of them wrong, but it's NA, EU, I think it's like Brazil, LATAM, North and South, and maybe OCE? I can't remember. But those regions are all going to get one team that wins for their region sent to London to compete live, and the winner of that is going to have the opportunity, or is not going to have the opportunity. They are going to get their spot secured for Worlds. At the same time, I believe teams from other regions can show up to EUIC in London, and they can fight through a bracket, make their way to fight for that spot as well. So a team from what I understand, and I could be getting some of this wrong, from what I understand, a team from India could show up in London, compete in the bracket that gets them into the AOS Cup, win in that bracket. I think I'm getting some of this right. And they could qualify for their spot. Right now, I don't think they've talked too much about this, but from the looks of it, it looks like that could happen. It looks like that could happen. If not, it's at least going to be 6 regions that can all compete for this spot. And it's not only the people who won in the AOS Cup. They already have their spot. But in general, I think it's just such an exciting tournament. I mean, I can't wait to see what happens because of it, because it's going to like immediately put a target on a team. Was like, wow, this is one of the best in the world. They've already secured their spots to Worlds, but at the same time, now they have a whole season where they don't need to compete as hard. They can obviously compete for prize money and things like that, but this is the kind of thing that could make or break a team if they win it, which is really interesting. I see Lutano in the chat. What are your thoughts on the AOS Cup giving championship points based on placement? I really don't know much about how the championship points are divvied up at the AOS Cup, but that's interesting. The AOS Cup is going to give championship points based on placement. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? You'd want to give championship points to teams placed high, but at this point, are we thinking that you're almost double dipping championship points? Is that what's kind of happening with it? Like you win the championship points for winning your region, and then you go to another thing that you're auto qualified for, and you get more points already? That could be interesting. The championship points are equivalent to regionals points. Oh, a lot's on the line. A lot's on the line for sure. One thing that's really interesting about it, and is odd in some ways, not odd, but I mean they had to find it somewhere, is EU and NA is sort of losing a spot in this situation unless one of them is able to win the final stretch spot at NAIC or the AOS Cup. So if you have Spragels, make a team with Chris. No, I can't. He calls me every day and I tell him no. If you have OCE win the AOS Cup, then a spot that was originally kind of set for EU, one of their 4 spots, went over to OCE. Right now, there are 3 spots for EU, 3 spots for NA, and now these 2 wild card spots. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out. One thing is for sure, there are so many good teams, especially in NA. EU it has a lot of good teams too, but NA feels like the most competitive region that I closely follow. There's so many good teams in NA that NA losing a spot is unfortunate, but at the same time, just kind of like any season, it does feel like the cream is going to rise to the top. We saw insane competition from NA last season, but you still had Luminosity, TTV, YT, and Amaterasu make it, and it seemed like those, outside of YouTube and GT, which were very, very close. There were a few that were pretty close there at the end, but it seemed like those were the ones that were going to make it. Now, there's 1 spot less. However, there are 2 other opportunities to get in. I've talked about AOS. I haven't talked about the final stretch. I think they're calling it the final stretch. So, at NAIC, while the regional finals are happening, there is going to be another tournament happening where someone can play in that tournament and qualify for Worlds. It's like the last chance wild card slot. So if you've had a rough season, you can travel to New Orleans in June or whenever it is, and you can have one final shot. Yeah, the last chance qualifier. You can have one final shot to make it to Worlds. One interesting thing is, I wonder if certain teams playing for regionals would actually not play in regionals and say, look, we have a way better shot in the final stretch than we do going up against whatever teams are there in regionals in the current moment. So there's going to be a lot of strategic decision making for NA teams around whether or not you're playing in regionals or you're playing in the final stretch. It's going to be wild. And in general, I want the best teams to show up at Worlds. And I also really like it when people who are great have an opportunity to still like clinch a spot. I really, really like that. AOS Cup, it feels more likely that a top team that is known is going to take that spot. You're going to see something like, TTV versus 00 Nation versus, Luminosity or Nouns Esports. Like one of those teams has a very good shot of taking the AOS Cup. But the last chance qualifier, the final stretch, I don't know who's going to take that spot. And I don't know who's able to compete for that spot. And I think it's going to make it extremely, extremely exciting. Spragels most likely going to be casting it. I couldn't say if I was going to be casting it or not. I'm talking about it a lot. But I think that's going to be extremely interesting. Those two tournaments are wild. NA and EU lose a spot because of these two tournaments, but the season is going to be absolutely insane. So I think that's great. Another thing that I think is great is there are monthly payouts, I guess. So now every tournament pays, where before some tournaments just awarded championship points. Now every tournament pays, which I think is really, really great. And I hope that encourages people to be more competitive in some of the months that feel like, I remember the May finals felt like, okay, May finals. Like there's a lot already decided for a lot of these regions. So I hope they're more competitive just because there is some money on the line. And we're going to find out what everything is going to start looking like here on Saturday. Again, I'm going to be here. I think I'm going to be here for EU and NA live on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. And I'm going to be alongside Doob Snacks, your Eye in the Sky on AOS Island, and Zoinks, your Eye in the Sky on AOS Island. I actually don't know what Zoinks' catchphrase is, but we're going to be watching a ton of those games. I think they're going to be live on the Unite Mike's channel as well. So we're going to see a ton of qualifier stuff happening because it's the AOS Cup qualifiers. It all begins on Saturday, which is absolutely insane. It's the best time for Pokemon Unite. The update schedule becomes more consistent because they have to update around tournaments and things like that. So it feels like this is when everything in Pokemon Unite really kicks into gear, and it's a lot more polished, I would say. They can't have bugs that are lasting forever, right? You can't, because these Pokemon have to be able to play in tournaments. So what often we'll see throughout the championship series season is you'll see a balance patch, and then a week later a bug fix patch, and then a week or two after that, maybe just 1 week after that, you will see one of the big tournaments or something like that. I can't wait. I hope we see more Pokemon available. I feel like last year was really exciting, but we had some unfortunate bans last year that I would not like to see this year. I would not like to see Mewtwo banned. I would not like to see Zacian banned, Miraidon, Ceruledge, whatever. I can understand banning a Pokemon the first month. It's the first tournament right after it's released because we don't know the power level of it. That all makes sense. But in general, let them play. Just let the kids get out there and play, man. I want to see these Pokemon. If it's reasonable that they can play inside of the ranked mode of Pokemon Unite, I want to see the best of the best play with them against the other best of the best inside of Pokemon Unite. So there we go. That's the championship series. It all starts very soon. So many exciting things for Pokemon Unite. Obviously, the leaks have been crazy. I'm going to take a look at some of the super chats. Also see just some questions here from the chat while I'm closing out the podcast right here. If there's something specific that you want me to answer, for sure, super chat or a hype chat, and I will make sure to answer it right here. From Sean Bleh. Thank you, Sean. Can you please explain how EXP share gives 69% of the experience to your mom, regardless of who hits it last? So this is actually a bit of a thing that's misunderstood, Sean. That's not exactly how EXP share works. EXP share, the way it works, and I think this is important for people to understand, is if you're Hoopa and you have EXP share on and you're near a Pokemon and your Aegis Slash is right there as well, and you get the last hit, 100% of the experience from that is going to go over to that little Aegis Slash. if the Aegislash gets the last hit, 100% of that experience is going to head over to that Aegislash. 30% of that experience heads over to Hoopa. So what you're doing is effectively powering up a carry Pokemon, something that probably needs level 5 to become very, very strong. You know, think Buzzwole or something like that. If you can get Buzzwole level 5 before the 850 birds, your advantage is unbelievable, right? You're also generating more experience than is on the map. There is more experience than there is on the map when you're doing this. You're creating experience out of thin air, and you're also taking a Pokemon that doesn't need more than level 12 in the end game, and you're making sure it gets that through passive experience, and it sets up a lot of opportunities to help your team. So that's how EXP share works, Sean. It's a little different than you originally thought, but I do understand your question, and I think a lot of people are confused as to why so much of the experience goes over to Sean's mom. But in this situation, it's actually just a misunderstanding. Thank you very much for that super chat. I appreciate it. From Booskadoo, do you have time to consider our Lord and Savior support Magikarp? I'm hearing a lot about support Magikarp. Can I say something about Magikarp real quickly here? I would like to say about Magikarp. Magikarp does not need jungle, and I've never tried support Magikarp. So there are two things. I don't know about support Magikarp, but I would rather have support Magikarp than jungle Magikarp. I can explain why. Can we explain why doing the bad path clear is why? Sure. Real quickly, I'll tell you just very briefly why Magikarp is bad in jungle. It takes forever to clear jungle. You don't get in lane in time to do any meaningful gank. You're so much weaker than any Pokemon coming out of the central area. You're, without question, putting your team way, way, way behind. The bad path clear is bad just because it's annoying. If you don't know what that is, Shrugs is asking about the bad path clear. That's when you run past two Bunnelbees and you just go hit the other two that are kind of standing next to each other in a line there. It's just so weird. It's slow. It's the only Pokemon who kind of does it with any speed is like Inteleon, but in general, it's just a super slow clear. I don't know anyone who does it, but for some reason, some players end up doing this really bizarre clear. And I've never understood it, but that is something that happens inside of Pokemon Unite, is this really, really weird clear. ANXB, I'll take this as probably our last question here. Where do you see this game in 10 years? Well, I don't want to be a downer, but there's very little chance that Pokemon Unite exists in 10 years. I would find that highly unlikely. I think Pokemon Unite is probably the kind of game that exists for maybe 5 years or something like that, unless it gets incredibly popular at some point. I think this is Pokemon's first step into competitive esports. You know, they obviously have, you know, they have TCG and they have VGC and Go and all that, but this is kind of like their first like 5v5 big game mode where they're bringing teams together, and I think that's going to be big for a little while, and then they're going to move on to another game, and then they're going to decide if they want to keep supporting an esport like this or if they want to move on to something else. Rich McCann, with the Switch 2 coming this year, who knows what will happen? That's true. Because coming from the Twitch chat as well, Tashingo says, once the Switch dies, Unite dies. I don't really think that's the case because it's really set up to be a mobile game anyway. So I wouldn't really say that that's what's going on. And whatever can be played on the Switch 2 will... Anything, that's played on the Switch will be able to be played on the Switch 2. So I'm not too worried about Pokemon Unite working or not working on the Switch 2. It barely works on the Switch. Ayo! Big shout out to G Fuel. Thank you for being a sponsor. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to hear more of, what you'd like to hear less of. Thank you. I love you. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody. We did it. We did a podcast together, everyone.